Welcome to Grow Your Cloud Readiness with the Google Cloud Digital Leader Certification session. My name is Magda, and I'm the Global Lead on the Google Cloud Certification Go-to-Market team. And joining me today is Nasser, Cloud Training Business Lead. Let's take a look at our agenda today. We'll first introduce the Cloud Digital Leader exam. We'll then look at what to expect on the exam. We'll cover some preparation tips, and we'll also get some insights from the expert. So let's get started. What is a Google Cloud Digital Leader? A Cloud Digital Leader can distinguish and evaluate the various capabilities of Google Cloud core products and services and how they can be used to achieve desired business goals. A Cloud Digital Leader is well-versed in basic cloud concepts and can demonstrate a broad application of cloud computing knowledge in a variety of applications. The Cloud Digital Leader exam is job role independent. The exam assesses the knowledge and skills of individuals who want to or are required to understand the purpose and application of Google Cloud products. How to prepare for Cloud Digital Leader? Here's a recommended learning path. We do recommend you start with the review of the exam guide to really have a good sense of what's covered in the exam. Then we have brand new training for Cloud Digital Leader, 4 modules that we recommend for you to take. And we also recommend some additional resources, including sample questions. A little bit more about this certification. As I mentioned, the exam guide is the source of truth for topics covered in the exam. And then completing the Cloud Digital Leader training is not necessarily sufficient for exam success. You really need to assure that you are very well-versed in the topics covered in the exam guide. Many of the exam questions are scenario-based, and the exam questions test your ability to apply knowledge. This is still a new exam, so the list of readiness resources will expand over time. At the end of the exam, we do not provide any feedback. And then there are also retake policies that apply, and you can check them out on the external exam website. So let's take a look at the certification overview. As mentioned, the exam guide is your source of truth for all the domains covered by the exam. Many of the exam questions are scenario-based, and the exam questions test your ability to apply knowledge. This is still a relatively new exam, so the list of readiness resources will expand over time. There is no exam feedback provided upon taking of the exam, and then there are retake policies that apply, and you can check them out on the external exam website. Let's take a look at the exam details. It's a 90-minute long exam. The registration fee is $99. It's available in English. It's multiple choice and multiple select. And when it comes to the exam delivery method, you can take the online proctored exam from a remote location or take the on-site proctored exam at a testing center. There are no prerequisites, and we definitely recommend you check out the exam website as well as the exam guide. Let's take a look now at the new available training for Cloud Digital Leader. This path consists of the following module. First, Introduction to Digital Transformation with Google Cloud. Then, Innovating with Data and Google Cloud. The third one, Infrastructure and Application Modernization with Google Cloud. And then the final module, Understanding Google Cloud Security and Operations. And under the following link, you can find this learning path and access and complete. So we hope you enjoy it. So now let's have a conversation with Nasser about his experience of the exam. Nasser is a long-term Googler, over 11 years of technical experience with Google Cloud in his previous customer engineering roles, and now he's the regional training business lead. Welcome again, Nasser.
Hi, Magda. Great to be here.
We are delighted to have you here. Could you please tell us about your motivation to approach the exam?
So the Cloud Digital Leader certification is very much focused around business users. and very much a sweet spot for the folks who are responsible for digital transformation in any organization. So that being the foundation, that's the kind of place I started from a study perspective for this particular exam.
Thank you, Nasser. So what was your preparation for this exam like?
So I took a slightly different approach when it came to the exam. I set the date for my exam well in advance and reverse planned my study time week by week, leading right up to the exam date. So planning every single segment of learning I wanted to do. I did 3 to 4 weeks, which is kind of advised. If you break up the learning between 18 and 16 hours, and roughly between 3 or 4 hours a week of learning, and depending on your experience, you might need more or less. I think the folks who are not so exposed or not so experienced might need more time, and those who are really proficient and have got some foundational knowledge, they probably need a little less time. The other thing as well is to go through all the on-demand learning. That's highly recommended. There's 6 hours of study. It should take no more than a day or two to go through things. More if you're pausing and taking notes like I did. So I went through the on-demand content and really took digital notes, and not even scribbling stuff down, but actual digital notes. And don't stop there. So the idea here is to actually go through the exam guide as well, which is in fact the source of truth for what will come up in the exam. Lastly, go through all the sample exam questions. Again, highly recommended because it'll give you a feel for the language that's being used, the kind of questions that are being asked, and really gets you into the right zone when it comes to answering questions and being quite quick with regard to understanding what is being asked in a particular question and getting to obviously the right answer. So the other point to make as well is you're not just learning for the exam, you're actually learning for your own development and for your own knowledge as well. So very important.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nasser. Any tips and tricks you'd like to share with the audience today?
Yep, I've got quite a few tips and tricks. So the exam is 90 minutes, multiple choice. So when taking the exam, have a strategy in place. The 90 minutes will go really, really fast. So in theory, you should be able to allocate a set number of minutes for each question. So roughly it might be between 90 and 100 seconds for each question. That's time to read, time to process, look at the answers and really get an idea of what you think is going to be the right answer. And then giving you some time at the end to check your answers as well. So that's the other important thing. So you want to check things over at the end and make sure any questions that you've left or skipped, you can go back to and sort of reference back again. I'd try and cycle through all the questions at the start to read through them, to get a feel for what's being asked, the wording, the style of questions, and the cognitive load. So how much they're putting into the questions. I'd also try and answer the easy ones first. So some of the low-hanging fruit, the one-liners, you can get through those reasonably quickly and get some confidence and build your confidence there. I would also highlight the questions that you think you're not too sure on, so you can refer back to those at the end. Remember I said allocating time for each question means that you won't run over time and you're actually giving yourself some time at the end there to really review all of the things, either the questions that you didn't answer or the ones that you marked that you wanted to refer back to. Some of the questions are multiple answer, so please do read the questions slowly and really understand carefully what is being asked of you. And yeah, it's there's an art to it and enough preparation. Your study will pay for itself with regard to when you're answering questions that you're not too sure on. So yeah, taking that time out is really useful to practice and look at the exam questions.
Thank you, Nasser. These are all really great tips. So could you please cover some of the topics you would like our audience to really pay attention to during the exam or as they prepare for the exam?
So beyond the core benefits of cloud, such as on-demand, self-service, access to infrastructure and services, or the economics of things like elasticity and paying for services by the second, there's a lot to consider when it comes to what you need to know from on top of the core knowledge. We'll briefly touch on a few topics to give you a feel for the depth of what's required for this particular certification. And I'll go through some key concepts, which I think I'll recommend for all who are looking at this Cloud Digital Leader Cert, and things that you're going to need to be familiar with. So understanding the various cloud migration options is a topic on the exam. So you'll need a clear understanding of the various migration options and their merits. So for example, things like lift and shift is good to move to the cloud, but doesn't necessarily take advantage of cloud in its entirety. You still have to manage virtual hardware, VMs, OSs, etc. So just giving you a very basic example there. So understanding the multiple sort of product options in a particular customer scenario is key there. So how the products possibly interplay, and not just what each product does or its definition. So when you asked a question, it might not just be about things like recalling, but it'll be about a particular scenario that you're having to answer a question for. So this is where case studies are also helpful. I think there's links in the exam guide to those case studies, which are very useful, and you should go through them. We've started with migration because that's where really a common request that we get from customers, because we want to try to meet them where they are. So cloud identity is critical to understanding identity and access management, or IAM. And there are many subtopics under cloud identity, which I'd encourage you to go through and look at. You've got to be familiar with cloud identity, as it's key to running a smooth cloud operation. In fact, one of the on-demand sessions is about cloud operations, which again go through some of the core elements around operations, but identity and access is one of those elements that you need to be really familiar with. You might get asked about certain reporting and analytics, which helps sort of business users understand who's accessed information, when, how, and so forth. So it's very critical from a security, governance, and privacy perspective. So cloud identity is one of those core topics that I encourage you to go a little bit deeper on. So cloud networking is a massive topic in its own right, and we could spend the entire day on that easily, but we don't have that luxury. So you've got to make sure that you're really familiar with the sort of networking connectivity options based on the customer's requirements, their speed, their privacy requirements, etc. There's some great documentation on this on the cloud.google.com website. It's also useful to understand how networking is done in the cloud, because it's very different to on-premises networking. And that's commonly referred to as software-defined networking, or SDN, which is a step up from sort of traditional physical networking, as I mentioned. A lot more capability, functions, features there that you need to be at least familiar with, as I said, at the basics, fundamentals level. There's no need to go into too much detail there, because as I mentioned, networking is a massive topic, but understanding the basic networking options and the different scenarios explained in the slide above are probably as much as you need to do. Lastly, the console structure is critical to understanding Google Cloud Platform. So this is where you're actually going in and looking at the console hierarchy. So at the org domain level, at the project folder and resource level. So you really know what's going on there in terms of how things are set up. I'd encourage you to look at the console structure, to look at cloud billing with enough detail, sort of essential for running any cloud operation. Finally, the exam shouldn't be the end of your learning. So be sure to sort of continue your learning. Google Cloud develops on a, sort of releases on a monthly, if not weekly basis. There's something new there that needs to be understood and learnt. And I think the more you know as a business user, the more useful it's going to be for you. Not necessarily at that detail level, but at the decision maker, directing a cloud project level, it's going to be really critical for you to be able to help drive a transformation product in the right direction. So always new things to learn. And, as I said, great to contribute to your own self-development and to your own career. So that would be that sort of final element and final comment to make there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nasser, for the technical deep dive as well as for the great wrap-up. This is really it for today. We really hope you learned something new, and we wish you best of luck with your certification preparation and the Cloud Digital Leader exam. Thank you and bye-bye.